Singh sir and Shri Krishnavats, member NDMA, and Mr. Rajesh, and other invitees. Today, we had a subject which was being considered for quite some time because why I'm saying so that first time when I visited one forest fire, when I interacted with the forest fire, it was way back in 1990. The first time I remember because in Almora, we had one of the DRDO lab which was engulfed with the forest fire. And that time our Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, he was head of DRDO. And then he requested a team of experts from DRDO to visit. So I was a part of it. That was my first interaction, first on the spot, seeing how the forest fire looks like in 1990. And second time, thereafter, I visited many other locations, including Uttarakhand, Maharashtra, and all. And off late, in 2016, there was a big fire again in Uttarakhand. It was at 14 different locations. Ministry of Home Affairs, they constituted an expert committee where I was a member of the committee. Along with me was ED, NIDM, and one DIG Forest from Ministry of Environment and Forest. And after visiting the place, because we were staying there for almost 4 or 5 days, we were there and we visited all those spots. And thereafter, we interacted with the Chief Secretary of the state. Then we submitted the final report to MHA. So today, after seeing all this, whatever presentations we have seen, so we had given many of the recommendation at that stage. But very happy to learn today that so many things have been implemented on ground. So there were certain things which we had because today when we were talking in the morning hours, as our HOD NDMA, Shri Rajendra Singh sir, he was giving emphasis on three different aspects. He was saying prevention is the only cure. So that's the only cure. Second, he said good forest fire management not possible without good forest management. That's very, very important because if the things are not lying in the proper place, then how can we expect that the propagation and all? What he was trying to say is that when we talk of the fire lines, etc., so the propagation takes place if we don't have proper fire lines. So if everything is in place initially, the fire propagation will not take place. Third thing he mentioned was the community involvement, which is a must because we also interacted during that point of time in the field area. We interacted with the community people, and one of the recommendation which we had given was after interacting that women active involvement has to be there because when the the forest rangers or the fire watchers they are fighting out the fire in the field area, that's a time when their lady wives they are supporting them on regular basis for their meals, etc., other things. So that was one of the things we had given. And then our HOD has said that there are 5 R's: risk reduction, readiness, review, response, and recovery. These are another very, very important areas. Having said that, there are certain things which I was thinking that whatever we had given as a part of recommendation discussed today, I would like to highlight those things. The first was that training to the responders, because now we know that the latest, in January 2023, NDRF has been given the responsibility to look after the forest fires. Henceforth, they will be the responders. And there's a need to have the capacity building because this is a specialized kind of training. As we see abroad, there are specialist group of people who have been assigned with this duty. They call it as smoke jumpers. So they are specialized group of people. They, specially trained for this purpose only. So as and when there is any incident, they go to that. So similar thing is required in our country, training to the responders, NDRF, SDRF, state fire service people, very much important because fire service is a state subject. So when I was interacting in Uttarakhand with the state fire service people, they said it is not our responsibility because it's not a part of State Fire Service Act that we have to take care of the forest fire. So there is a need of the hour that we should have an MOU which should be formalized, that in case of any forest fire, the State Fire Service, some group of people, some group of experts will be a part of it, and they will also join the main forest fire people to fight out the fire. And the training for the volunteers, we had said, NGOs also, because the forest is a big size of fire on ground. If you see, we need to have hundreds and thousands of people to be involved in that activity. It's not that simple. Even when we are fighting the ground level fire, we need to have at least 100 people to look after different areas. And locals also, with a defined training module, they have to be trained, including the field firefighting demos and practices they have to be shown. It should be a part of the training, whatever training we are giving formally to them. Then there is a requirement to have the mock exercise at regular interval, so that we need to know what are the different agencies. It's a multi-agency response system mechanism where we need to know that what all has to be there and what all resources are available with different stakeholders, with different agencies, so that in terms of manpower and equipment, we can exchange those resources. Then we have a creation of specialist group. As I had said, that forest fire, we need to create a specialized group of officers, a group of people who will take care of these kind of eventualities. Then all the forest fire affected states should be well equipped with trained manpower to handle the situation. And there's a need to standardize the equipment, because we can't say one particular Uttarakhand has one set of equipment and Madhya Pradesh a different set of equipment. So there's a need to have the same set of equipment, and there's a need to have a code of practice also, and there's a requirement to have the Indian standards on different type of equipment. That's important, as we have for any other firefighting equipment. We have Indian standards on different equipment. We need to have on these equipment also. Then there is a need to have involvement of research institutions and academia in designing, developing, and manufacturing of specialized firefighting equipment, vehicles, and fire extinguishing chemicals. Because that's very, very important, that there's a need to have the funds, separate fund under R&D head also in this particular area. Then another thing was that there is a need to have the insurance to the affected people, the forest fire people. There should be a scheme of forest fire insurance scheme or policy should be there, so that those people are specially covered in that area. And from time to time, the people who are there, who have been assigned the duty of the firefighting, as well as those who are living in the vicinity area, there's a need to have for the annual medical checkup also under public health checkup scheme has to be there, in order to check their cardiovascular and respiratory conditions, because generally it so happens, whenever there is a fire, it is affecting the locals in a very, very big way, but their regular medical checkup is not done, with the result that they come across with many kind of diseases. That's very, very important. Then there is a need to have technological preparedness in terms of PPEs, personal protective equipment, as was mentioned by one of the, I think, ICFRE. They mentioned that they got it done from DRDO PPE development. Similarly, the other technologies also, there's a need to have ATV, all-terrain vehicle. All-terrain vehicle is being used world over, to handle the forest fires. So similar kind of thing we can also have in our country, where the specification has to be there, so that similar ATV is subjected to all the states. Then UAVs also, there is a need to have UAV for the surveillance as well as firefighting, so that hotspots are located, because in case of any forest fire, it becomes, the visibility becomes a key issue. It becomes very difficult to see where to attack the fire. With the present system, whatever we are using in terms of helicopters and all, it has its own limitations, because when we use Bambi buckets and all, every time it can carry only 100 liter or 200 liter of water. But we have, bombers available abroad. If you see there in US and all, the bombers are there, the aircraft are there, which can carry 13 to 15,000 liters of water in one go, and that gets mixed up with the different chemicals, slurries, and then it is projected what we see in the videos and all. Similar kind of thing there's a need to have in our country also. Then AI based tools, because as it was being discussed during the one of the presentation, artificial intelligence is gaining a lot of importance in our country now, and next 4 5 years we'll see a lot of things which are governed by AI. So, in order to do that, so one of the state, Odisha, already has, but this is cost intensive at this stage. So there's a need to indigenize this kind of thing. We should find out some agency which can indigenize so that cost is reduced drastically, because the first five detectors he was mentioning is costing as of now 3 crore rupees. So if the cost is a prohibitive factor at this stage, then there's a need to indigenize this kind of thing. Then heavy machinery requirement like bulldozer and all, because when we are drawing the fire line and all, there's a need to have this. And then mobility and communication, we had mentioned in the report at that stage, but now things have drastically improved, because my last visit was in 2022 also, when I visited Uttarakhand, and in the month of March, April, there was a fire going on there. In the actual fire condition, we used one fire suppression gel, which was developed by DRDO. So that was used very effectively onto the forest area. So that time I could see that things have drastically changed on ground, whatever we had mentioned during 2016 report. Then aerial patrolling system, early warning system, we discussed during daytime presentations. And then, there's a need to have, whenever we are asking of any aircrafts or aerial firefighting, there's a need to have the night vision devices, because the limitation as of now is, during sunset, we also felt that time. Today the same scenario exists, that during after sunset, it is not being done. The firefighting becomes very, very difficult. So there's a need to have the night vision devices. And then there's a need to have the formation of working group wherever necessary to monitor the implementation of national level policies. Whatever policy is existing, there's a need to have the working group which should monitor from time to time. Then there's a need to have the foreign training also, because last time also I think NDRF just now mentioned in the presentation that they had contacted one company from US and other country also. So there's a need to have a group of people which should be subjected to the training abroad, especially in those institutions which specialize in the forest fire area. And within country also, we have National Fire Service College Nagpur. They can be strengthened, and whatever resources are required, they can be given those resources, so that at least we start some training program at national level at National Fire Service College, which has a very vast campus of 43 acres. So that is also possible. Then safety and security of the personnel who are engaged in the forest firefighting and those residing in the local areas. This was one of the point which was brought out during the meeting. And then there's a requirement of mapping of the causes and mapping of the resources and mapping of the water bodies, because the water becomes very difficult every time, one helicopter which comes and it releases the quantum of water it carries, then the turnaround time is almost 1.5 to 2 minutes. After 2 minutes it comes back, so with the result, whatever fire had already taken place or got extinguished little bit, it comes back to square one. So there's a need to have that. We should have more water bodies so that water is available in abundance in that particular area. Then there is a need to have a creation of national level database on the forest fires. This was one of the points brought out by one of the panelists in the daytime during presentation. The national level academy for the forest fire training. If there's a special requirement to have a specialized kind of national level academy, it should be there. Then the last is the modeling and simulation study on the forest fire spread, because the spread pattern, we were talking that once it starts, the fire starts from one area. So what is a pattern and all? There is a now softwares available where modeling and simulation studies on forest fire that can be done in a big way now. I mean, these are the points which were most of them. This was discussed during the panel discussion during the daytime. Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you, sir. Your remarks beautifully encapsulate the essence of today's workshop. Now, I would like Sri Rajendra Singh, Member HOD, to felicitate Ma'am Leena Nandan, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, with a sapling of a plant. I would also like I would also request Dr. Krishna Vatsar to felicitate A.K. Mohanty sir, ADG, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to invite Ms. Leena Nandan, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, to deliver the valedictory address. Please join me in welcoming ma'am on the stage with a round of applause.
My colleagues from the NDMA, from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, colleagues from the state governments, and representatives of different organizations, ladies and gentlemen. I was particularly keen to attend the valedictory session so that I could get a sense of the discussions during this day-long workshop. And I think Dr. Vadva's presentation and his remarks have given a comprehensive overview of the ideas, the best practices, and most importantly, the way forward. I don't need to emphasize the challenge that climate change is posing to forests in our country and worldwide. The increasing heat levels, the changing patterns of rainfall, all of these pose an immediate and imminent threat, and our forests are extremely vulnerable given our climatic conditions. And at this point of time, I'm really appreciative of the fact that NDMA has come forward to organize and co-host this workshop with the MoEF, because at this point of time, we need to be even more alert than during the rest of the year, because we are heading into that spell of dry weather and the time when our forests become increasingly vulnerable to stray incidents of fire, which, if left unchecked, could result in the loss of so many trees and so much of biodiversity and release of so much of carbon into the atmosphere. Though at this point of time, I must say that if we take a step back and look at how India has been able to develop a kind of a concerted strategy to manage forest fires, I think there are a lot of lessons for the different states that are engaged in this activity and the lessons that can be shared with other countries. And that is the reason why last year, when during our G20, we had taken up themes for deliberation and discussion, one area that we had focused on was prevention of forest fires and restoration of forest fire impacted areas. And that theme resonated very well with the G20 countries, because we had also taken up an equally important aspect of water management. And it does not need to be emphasized that water management and forest fire prevention go hand in hand. That is why the actions that we undertake and the preparedness that we have is something that, while we highlight it at a global level, we have to be cognizant and we have to constantly improve whatever we are doing. Undoubtedly, there is a lot of planning which has already happened, and over the last few years, we have improved the way that we are using the satellite to track on a daily basis and then pick up incidents of fire and try and disseminate the alerts. But can whatever we do be done better? Can we have an integrated approach which starts from now itself? And when we say integrated, it means taking all the arms, not only of government, but also civil society, and making them a part and parcel of whatever we propose to do. So it should not be a top down approach. Rather, it should be a bottom up approach. We know what are the vulnerable districts in the states, and within the districts we are aware of which are the areas where the forests are not only located, but where, because of their unique condition, maybe distance from water sources or whatever be the unique situations, those areas are more vulnerable. So therefore, when we say an integrated plan to involve the different wings of the government machinery, the revenue department, the forest department, the fire services, and it was pointed out by, I think, Dr. Wadhwa, that fire services in some states say that this is not within our mandate. But that approach has to change. So whatever needs to be done at the state and central level, we have to do that. Because when it comes to the reaction and the response, all the organs of government are pressed into service. Why not take them into account even at the preparatory stage itself? So micro plans and SOP that translates into micro plans that have the ownership right from the community upward through the concerned government department representatives that are there at the village level, at the tehsil and block level, at the district level, and then making sure that everybody is fully aware of what is the vulnerability, what is it that we need to do for prevention, and what is it that we need to do for swift response and stopping it from spreading further. So therefore, the action plan, the community involvement is so important. The other aspect is capacity building, and the different wings that would be pressed into action at the time when the crisis hits us, they need to be fully sensitized and trained much in advance. So that is the other aspect that this preparedness would translate into, because plans cannot be those that are made in paper or discussed in meetings and through various forums. They have to translate into actual actionable steps on the ground, and the boots on the ground, which are going to be our response strategy and our response mechanism, how they will be fully geared, how they will be fully attuned to the local geography. Because again, you would press them into service and they need to know the terrain, they need to know what is it, where they have to do, how they have to leverage those resources. So that can only happen if our micro plan is in place, if the capacity building of the people whose support we require to handle the forest fire once the outbreak has happened, if those people are fully geared up, sensitized, and have familiarity with the terrain on the ground. The third part is the community involvement. And here, this has to be a year round continuous process, because we cannot wait for the dry weather to be upon us to start sensitizing the community, to start sharing information on do's and don'ts. This actually has to be part and parcel of our outreach. And again, here, the different organs of government have their own ways of reaching out. So we will be having agriculture department which is continuously interacting with farmer groups. Is it possible for us to use this opportunity when the Kharif and Rabi discussions are happening, when the fertilizer and the seed activities are happening through the agriculture department? Is it possible to request that our people from the forest setup, from the NDMA, should get an opportunity to address these very same farmers, because they are the ones who are living in the villages. They are the ones who need to be fully aware that if the harvest of a particular crop is going to be in such a manner that they are going to set fire to their fields, what is going to be the resultant damage that they cannot envisage, and how, if this is done, this has to be then this has to be, if we feel that this is not going to really result in that change in behavior, then our field staff need to be aware that this is the area where the harvesting is going to lead to, or not just harvesting of a crop, even gathering of flowers and fruits from the forests, the forest produce. Very often there is this tendency to set fire for whatever local produce that they think is better served. That has to be watched out for. So can we reach out to them not only through our JFMCs, not only through our traditional forest machinery, but through agriculture department, through rural development, through the health machinery, because we are addressing the very same beneficiaries who are living in the villages. So let us not compartmentalize the way that we work on the ground. That is one very significant message that I would like to leave today. Another aspect that we have talked about is, of course, stepping up our use of better technology. So satellite imagery, but closer to the ground, drone management of, and keeping an eye out for the situation on the ground through drones. I have also learned that there are countries that use drones not only to take images but also to convey messages. So they are giving messages in the local language, whatever is required to be conveyed, using the drones which have access in a manner that is faster than the people would take to reach those areas. Is it possible for us to start thinking on those lines, to start using drones for disseminating information as well? There are best practices that must have been shared in the course of the workshop. Earlier this year, we had a series of meetings and discussions because unfortunately 24 has been a year that has seen, right from in fact the end of 23, we have seen large number of outbreaks of forest fires. So we have had discussions with state governments, and I think there was a workshop also, perhaps Anjan, in Bhopal earlier this year on space technology and harnessing the power of space technology, where states that have developed good ideas in the sense of using the weather alerts from the IMD and translating it through AI based systems into disseminating along with the information about the pattern of wind movement, disseminating alerts about the likely spread of fire much before it actually touches those areas. So the power of technology is immense. And it is not as though we necessarily have to look at it as always a new investment. Existing technologies that have been deployed, how can we converge it with forest fire management? That is the innovation that can be brought in. And I'm sure that the people on the ground in the districts and in the ranges would be able to put their thoughts into this kind of innovation, this kind of out of the box utilization of existing resources, be it manpower, be it beneficiary groups that I have just mentioned, or be it the technology that is already available, even though it may be getting utilized for a different purpose. So using all of this information and preparing micro plans from macro to micro, having SOPs, having the community involved, and over and above everything else, the sensitization and the awareness generation, which has to be all through. But from now itself, it is very important to start building up, because this year, an extremely hot summer, we do not know what is going to be the nature of the months ahead, because if there is one thing that we have learnt about climate change, it is that we cannot predict how hot or how rainy or how cold an imminent weather or imminent season is going to be. All that we can do is to be prepared for it. That is why state governments have developed their adaptation plans. Those adaptation plans look at preparedness for heat waves, extreme cold, extreme rain and flooding situations, and forest fire management. So please go back to your state, look up your adaptation plan, and if there isn't sufficient focus on forest fires as something that is going to be the impact, that is going to be impacted because of climate change, please include it by taking it up at the highest levels in the state, and whatever support that is required from the ministry in terms of the policy advocacy, we are more than happy to extend it. NDMA is working with all the states for the purposes of responding, deploying its forces, but it should not come to that situation. It should be avoided as far as possible, and that avoidance would be better done if from day one we are not only cognizant of the problems that lie ahead and the challenges, but we are also, in a sense, more open to involving other people in the scheme of things, because only when, as a country and as a concerted whole of government and whole of society approach, do we take up the problem of forest fires, only then would we have really been able to rise to the challenge. So I'm sure that this workshop would have given you a lot of thoughts and ideas. And I do hope that when you are back in your respective offices and in the field, you would connect with a colleague and ask a little more, so that the learning doesn't end here. The exposure, the awareness, and the ideas, this should be just the beginning. And the way forward that you chalk out on the ground would actually bear the imprint of the discussions and deliberations today. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure that wherever there is a specific intervention that any of our colleagues on the dais or anybody who is present here today requires, is required to intervene, we should be more than happy and capable of extending that help, support, and assistance, because forest fires are something that are a matter of great concern, and they can be managed, but only through joint, collaborative, and cohesive action. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the valedictory address. It was really insightful, and I hope everybody present in this auditorium would be really uh, like, according to ma'am, what she said, we should be collaborative enough, and we should go back to our respective states and deliver exactly what we should do. Now, I would like to conclude the workshop. I will now request Sri A.K. Mohanty, ADG, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, to deliver the closing remarks.
Respected dignitaries in the dais, distinguished participants of the workshop, it was really a pleasure and privilege to be here amongst all of you in this valedictory session of this important workshop on forest fire and their challenges in India. This workshop comes at a crucial time when the threat of forest fires has become a major concern for our environment, economy, carbon assets, and overall well-being of the communities. Forest fires are a significant environmental and socio-economic challenges in India. Their frequency and intensity have been increasing in recent years due to a combination of human-induced factors and, of course, natural factors. Forest fires impact directly to climate change through the release of stored carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. India's forest sector is a key component of its huge carbon sink, and recurring forest fires are undermining this key asset. I am really very happy to note that the key stakeholders here from different disaster management related agencies have participated in this workshop. The workshop has been organized very timely to facilitate the states and union territories to effectively ensure the preparation for the upcoming fire season, which generally starts in November every year. As I could see the whole program schedule, the workshop has focused on early warning system and infrastructure, fire mitigation and community participation, capacity building strategies, and of course strengthening coordination. I must say that the workshop has been thoughtfully designed by the organizers, and in fact all these issues are well aligned with our National Action Plan for Forest Fire Management 2018. In recent years, we have witnessed more forest fires due to changing climate patterns, rising temperatures, prolonged dry periods, and erratic rainfall make our forests more vulnerable to fires. Addressing this challenge is not only about forest firefighting, but also about climate adaptation. Technology plays a vital role in modern forest fire management. Through initiatives like Forest Fire Alert System, remote sensing, and GIS-based mapping, we are enhancing the capabilities of the early warning system and providing real-time alerts to help ground-level teams respond promptly and effectively. The initiatives of various states like Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh are really commendable and replicable. Now, coming to local communities, all of us will agree that they are our first line of defense in against forest fires. That their traditional knowledge combined with modern techniques can make a significant difference. We are working to strengthen community engagement through their awareness programs, training, and capacity building to ensure their active participation and effective participation in fire prevention and control. We have exemplary models from states like Kerala, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh. I am delighted that this workshop served as a platform for capacity building and knowledge exchange among forest officials, fire management experts, researchers, and community representatives. The MoEF&CC has planned regional workshops for different regions of the country to discuss and address challenges of forest fire. Besides, we are soon going to have a 2 days workshop in Hyderabad in November, sometime in November coming year, this year, on redesigning the forest fire fighting tools. So I take this opportunity to invite all stakeholders here to attend the workshop there, as well as I request them to give their valuable inputs there in technology management and community-based approaches to forest fire management. Managing forest fires require a collaborative approach. All of us will agree. We need strong coordination among various stakeholders. Most of us are here only, including state forest departments, disaster management agencies, local communities, and researchers. Let us use this workshop and similar events, similar programs to foster partnerships that will help us develop effective strategies for managing forest fire so that we may aim to reduce the incidences of forest fire in the forthcoming season significantly. At the end, I sincerely thank National Disaster Management Authority for co-hosting this workshop along with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And I assure you that we will take forward all the suggestions made in this workshop. I thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, sir. I extend my sincere appreciation to all the participants for their valuable contributions to this workshop on forest fire. Your engagement has enriched our discussions and fostered meaningful connections. It's time to express our gratitude. I invite Dr. Ronald Deva Burma, Senior Consultant for Forest Fire NDMA, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Respected Secretary Ma'am, Leena Nandan Ma'am, respected Rajendra Sir, member and HOD, senior officers in the dais, and all the senior officers who have come today here. I, on behalf of NDMA, would like to give thanks to actually MoEF&CC, the co-hosting partner, and all the senior officers who are present today, all the key stakeholders, the Institute. I really thank you for the participation. I believe we have learned a lot today through this workshop, and I believe we'll be establishing a greater bond and will make it future better for our future generation. Thank you all.